Today, we will gladly talk about the transformation strategy in the legislative. And it's a pleasure to moderate this panel today with all female leaders in this area to talk about technology, leadership, and impact on the legislative. I'm happy to welcome here today our speakers like Patricia Almeida from Brazilian House of Representatives, Tracey Jessup from UK Parliament, Helena from São Paulo City Council, and Collen from Trinidad and Tobago Parliament. At first, I would like to ask Patricia the first question. Patricia, you act in leading roles within the Brazilian House of Representatives, as well in interparliamentary groups in the modernization of the legislative power through the digital transformation. We are all well aware to the effort to ensure the continuity of legislative activities, commonly known as remote deliberations, do not represent a digital transformation project per se, but they are essential step towards showing the importance of a digital transformation strategy. So Patricia, my question to you is, why is it important for a legislature, either national or subnational, to have a digital transformation strategy? And what are the key elements they should be aware of?
First of all, thanks, Sarah. It's a huge pleasure to be here with the colleagues. A huge pleasure. Thank you so much for Bússola Tech. Well, I think the major difference between a traditional digitalization and a digital transformation is that while in a traditional digitalization, we see only systems being built. In a digital transformation, we reshape the institution through a digital perspective. So consequently, digital services, they become a higher level of connected, and they are well connected, and it implies big changes in the way people think, people decide, and people act, because decisions and actions become based on data evidence, just starting. And so only a deep transformation of people, of process and technology can allow legislative houses to deal with the frequent and quick changes of the world, and to try to overcome challenges like to improve the quality of laws, the quality of bills in a timely manner. And we know that it depends on high level of researches, rich researches, complex researches, and analysis to support the lawmaking process. The IT can help a lot. Another challenge, I would say, is having a trustful legislative process with mobility, which is a bit more than just virtual plenary sessions and committee meetings, because it means that we are considering the starting point of the lawmaking process. When an MP demands a technical study, when an MP demands a bill, until the end of the process, when the bill becomes an act. And maybe a third challenge, I would say, is trying to increase and keep a continuous interaction with the citizens, offering information according to their interest and skills quickly, and try to make interpretation of their contributions, their opinions, according concerning the bills, concerning the discussions that are inside the Parliament. The IT also can help a lot. So to deal with such challenges, I think parliaments must have a broad strategy that could start listening to people of different skills from different organization units and having special concern on people, because we are dealing with actors in a few process who will be moved to play different or adapted roles in new digital process. So it's highly desirable that we find a way to have benefits to all of them, to motivate them. Another key point I would say is when designing digital services, focus on processes despite of organization units. Because if you see the whole process, we will find all the organization units that will be connected through the digital services. Otherwise, we won't have connected services, just a system for one thing, another system isolated. And a third point I would say is just remind the likelihood of the success depends on a changing process. We are dealing with the changes that must consider a training plan and a communication plan, considering the difference among the actors. And as the world changes a lot, and most of our strategies are for 3 or 4 years, flexibility is a key element. So just a few key elements I will remember that can help those that are starting to think about the digital strategy. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Patricia, for your consideration. So I used to joke with friends of mine, like teamwork is dream work. So so the team is really important. The processes and the experience of people who are dealing with the process. So thank you for your considerations. Tracey, now I'd like to move for you the question. So you led the Parliament Digital Services and IT Unity, responsible to provide both the House of UK Parliament, the House of Commons, and the House of Lords with digital solutions to improve their daily processes. We know legislative traditions must be respected when designing a successful digital transformation strategy. In a large legislative houses, such as the United Kingdom House of Parliament, many different areas demand digital solutions to be implemented in their daily processes. In your view, what are the most common demands from colleagues and the civil servants and members for digital services in the House?
Thank you for the question, and it's great to be here and with colleagues. I think that the first layer is what you might call the utility layer, the basic needs, because today for everyone, for the civil servants and for members, the basics are like a utility. They're like needing water and heating. Everybody needs and wants connectivity. They want hardware. They want to be able to print effectively. So they want to be able to have just those basic things and not to have to think about them. And that can actually sometimes in our grade 1 listed World Heritage Building be quite a challenge, especially around connectivity, where we have an awful lot of stone, we have an awful lot of heritage restrictions about what we can do, and an ever increasing need to provide better mobile and Wi-Fi coverage. So that can be a challenge, but those basics, they have to be covered, and everybody wants those. And then I think if we look at the past 18 months with the COVID pandemic, we saw a switch over, really virtually overnight to a demand for video conferencing. Prior to that, Westminster, like most parliaments probably, was a very face-to-face place. Business took place in the committees, in the chambers. Overnight, that switched on its head. and the need for really excellent video conferencing and broadcast quality as well was immediate and across the board, and we all rely on that now. Then I think in terms of, to speak to Patricia's point around the difference between a commodity approach, and all of those things, of course, are commodities, and digital actually influencing the business and the way you work. We have seen a growing appetite from members for the difference that digital can bring into their working life and what the tools that we can provide them can do. And for us, that is around 2 tools that we have developed in-house that are called Peer Hub and Member Hub, which let the members of both houses do a number of things, including tabling questions digitally, having conversations about those questions, vote. In the House of Lords, they remote vote, and they can do that, manage their attendance, and any number of things. And we are still developing those in response to member feedback. So we get active feedback from members of features and things that they want to see that will enable them to live their daily life in a different way in Parliament. So broadly speaking, that sort of procedural picture and the user journeys within it is really influenced by the legislators themselves.
Tracey, for your remarks and your experience shared with us today. So I would like to direct my question now to Ana Helena. Welcome. So Ana Helena, you act as councillor in the City Council of São Paulo, the largest city in the Americas. Additionally, in 2019, the City Council had the Virtual Plenary Project, the first remote deliberation experience in the world, alongside the Spanish Senate. In terms of change management, from your leadership perspective, for example, which processes are the most necessary, in your opinion, to be digitalized in the City Council, and which have already been digitalized?
Hello, Sarah. Hello, you all. It's a pleasure to be with you. I would like to make a short summary of our virtual experience in the City Council of São Paulo, which, as you said, is the largest city in South America with a population of 12 million people, responsible for 11% of our gross domestic product, and the 5th largest, greatest budget in Brazil. It is only inferior to the national budget of our country and the budget of other 3 Brazilian states, including the state whose capital city is São Paulo. Actually, in spite of being such a big city, São Paulo's economy is comparable to that of many countries in the world. And unlike other countries, Brazilian cities have local parliaments with important competence defined by Brazil's 1988 federal constitution. Basically, the cities can legislate about any matter that might be of their predominant local interest, such as local tax laws, the organization and use of their territories, financial laws made to approve their budgets. Besides all that, the cities can also complement federal and regional legislation in many fields: environment, health, basic education, social assistance, public service in general. Since 2015, the City Council of São Paulo has been introducing the progressive digitalization of documents. In the beginning of this process, the main reasons behind it were related to the classification of documents according to our federal law and the space limitations for keeping them physically within the archives of our house. In 2019, the House decided to submit some of its lawmaking process to a virtual model, which happened to be the first remote deliberation experience we had had so far. Only simple proceedings were admitted to be processed by this virtual and entirely digitalized system, such as honorific titles, nomination of streets, squares, public buildings, other places, and events to be added to our official calendar. This was only possible due to technical tools, especially developed by our IT department in cooperation with our SGP, the General Secretary of our Parliament. With their expertise, we could gain time and efficiency, as those proceedings, those simple proceedings, represent the great majority of lawmaking process in the House, around 70% of all initiatives. The 55 members of our City Council could then get familiar with this digital process and its tools. They learned to present, to debate, and to vote proposals through digital means. And when COVID-19 came into our lives in March 2020, more or less, other urgent changes in the internal rules of our House had to be made in order to expand the virtual plenary to all matters, not only those simple ones I mentioned before. And this prompt response of our local parliament allowed the debate and approval of important laws proposed either by the city mayor or members of our parliament, having in mind the urgent needs caused by COVID-19. And nowadays, all lawmaking processes in the city are digitalized and can be fully or even partially discussed and voted through virtual meetings on the commissions or the plenary. The only exception has been the meetings of our investigation proceedings, our CPIs, investigative parliamentary commissions, whose works have been suspended since March 2021 due to the pandemic. These investigations, they need the physical presence of authorities, witnesses, and other diligence. And it would be risky to be doing that at the moment during the pandemic. So in view of the pandemic, I believe that our parliament is giving due priority to the lawmaking process regarding the immense challenge of the pandemic. In some time, I hope that the City Council will resume the CPIs, these investigation proceedings, which are the main instrument of control of the administration. And this is as important as the approval of new laws. Thank you.
Thank you for your considerations, Anna. So, Collen, now my question will be for you. We know that Trinidad and Tobago is located in the southwestmost end of the Caribbean, approximately 7 miles off the northwest coast of Venezuela, with a different reality from large parliaments. You act as a leading role in the communication area in Trinidad Tobago Parliament. So how can the communication house make the best use of the digital transformation opportunities for its communication, both with internal civil servants and MEPs, and external users like citizens and other organizations?
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your panel. So first of all, the Corporate Communications and Productions Department at Parliament has leveraged digital solutions, and we want to ensure that information is coming out of both our house, which is the lower house, and the Senate, the upper house, and that it is available online at all times. This includes text and video, and we are also on all major social media channels utilized by the Trinidad and Tobago public. But Palview, which is our YouTube channel, it has proven invaluable to our audiences thus far, and it provides live sittings as well as a feedback mechanism for viewers. So we have a live chat while the sittings, committee meetings, etc., all of our live meetings are going on. There is a live feedback chat, and we have our staff as well responding to questions as they come up from members of the public. It goes as well to Tracey's point about video conferencing, which is also key, as all of our committee meetings are now held virtually due to the pandemic. So we don't have, even some of the members, we don't have the members as well coming in. It may be just the chairman of the committees as well as the parliamentary staff who would come in order to ensure that the committee meetings take off properly. But witnesses don't come in anymore, media doesn't come in anymore, none of that happens. So everything is virtual, and so the public has a really easy way to access all of our information. We also have a paperless platform for our MPs, which was developed by our own IT department, where all of the documents for members are uploaded, whether it's committee minutes, sitting, the order papers for sittings of the houses, etc. And the name of that platform is called the Rotunda, and the Rotunda comes out of the Red House, which is the seat of our parliament. So there's a particular space in the Red House called the Rotunda. So when the app was developed, we called it the Rotunda. And again, it's similar to the Peer Hub and the Member Hub in the UK Parliament. So we have tried as much as we could to go paperless in this Parliament. So we try not to print too many order papers and print documents. So members now, they get everything soft copy online, so that we are trying to watch out for our footprint, our carbon footprint as well. We also have our YouTube channel, which I spoke about before. It provides access to citizens who do not have a cable subscription, and this offers them a chance to go back to the sittings and the committee meetings if they are not able to view them live. Also, all of our public documents are available online on our website, which allows easy and quick access, particularly outside of work hours. And it means that you can find documents at your own convenience, and the Hansard from the sittings are usually available up to 48 hours, about 48 hours after a sitting or even a committee meeting. So these are almost readily accessible. In terms of what we do with the media, we have a very active media organization in Trinidad, Tobago, Media in Trinidad, and we have a media WhatsApp group. Usually before, we would just send documents to the media via email, or of course, we didn't send things hard copy anymore, but via email. But we created a WhatsApp group so that we have almost instantaneous access to the media. So we send them links for committee meetings. We send them the lists of persons who will be attending meetings. We send them the Palview YouTube link. So the media has ready access, and we know that we will get immediate coverage. Even when there are no sittings or committee meetings taking place, we have members of the media messaging us to find out what is happening, is anything happening in Parliament. So we have a really close relationship with the media, and they are also able within that same WhatsApp group to ask questions and to get questions answered very easily. So the WhatsApp especially has allowed us to have real-time access to the media, and also so that they are able to share our message, as the case may be, with the public as easily as possible, along with the email lists, of course. One thing that has happened with us with the pandemic is that we would allow members of the media to come in for sittings of the houses. However, that had changed. I think it was in around March, April last year. So we were not able to allow members of the media to come in to cover sittings and committee meetings. So what we do is that we take all of the photos, we upload them to a Google Drive, and we share the Google Drive very freely with members of the media. So our WhatsApp group includes, we have over 70 participants in that group, and it includes photographers, heads of news, reporters, everyone who's involved in the media. Another thing that we do here is that we also have an art gallery. So that's another way for us to spread the message of Parliament through art, and it's art from ordinary citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And it's called the Rotunda, again, the Rotunda Gallery, because the gallery is actually in the Rotunda. So that's another way for us to, be open and accessible to the public. So, put another way, the Parliament, we have tried as best as we can to be as accessible to the public, even during a pandemic. And it is part of our thrust to be open, to be transparent, and to be accountable through both houses of the Parliament to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Collen. Right, really interesting to hear all of that. The YouTube channel and the WhatsApp group, they are really great tools. So, Patricia, now I want to move my second question for you and the second part of the panel. So, setting aside the sole possibility of the remote work from Parliament houses, which aspects of the legislative process should be focused on build-up of digital capacity to increase the digital resilience of Parliament and enable them to move beyond the solutions developed in the COVID time?
Thanks, Sarah. I think the lessons learned with the pandemic resulted in deep changes. People realized that they could do almost everything from anywhere. In addition, they became more assertive, focused on indicators, data, comparative analysis, and results. So to support this new scenario, I think to support and to build up digital capacity, I think we need to provide trustful data and the processes to deal with the data management and encompassing the whole life cycle of the data from the point that the data are created until when they are discarded. We need a data governance. A second point, I think, is to prepare people to face this new reality. A digital and a data literacy plan becomes crucial. So I think it should encompass a training plan, but considering real cases to solve real problems, because we don't have any time to waste, we must be assertive. A third point I would say is that diving in a digital world requires a deep understanding, a deep view of security issues concerning each process, each working process, and how they are impacted when people act from anywhere outside the house, outside the Parliament. So traditional security mechanisms that uses different layers of security must be replaced for new mechanisms that work as if we should have just one layer, everyone at the same level with maximum security, because we must be prepared to have everyone, to see everyone working outside. It can happen, it happened. And another point, I think, to gain scale is to build the digital platforms based on block of digital services that can be combined and reused as much as possible. Sometimes try to look for technologies that can be used for different aims, but it depends on the managers, the leaders of the Parliament. They accept the idea of sharing technologies and try to avoid a high level of customization in commercial software. So we need to negotiate it a lot. If you don't do it, I think digital transformation can be unsustainable for a medium and long term. And As it was necessary for virtual deliberative systems, deep changes in process requires new policies. Just for instance, most of parliaments that have already implemented virtual plenary sessions and committee meetings, they had to change the regiment or create a new resolution in kind of norm. So I think we need to consider at least to review the policies concerning the process that we are working with. So I think those are a few elements to be considered to build up digital capacity. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Patricia, for your consideration. So, Tracey, I move my next question for you with a 4 minutes length. In your first remarks, you shared an overview of the demands from the Parliament users and the team demanding digital solutions for their daily activities. I want to deep dive a little more with you on that. In a sense, we understand a large legislative house such as UK Parliament has to define priorities to invest in its modernization and digitalization. Although some areas would have a higher impact in the modernization of the house, they are also more sensitive to change in traditional processes. For colleagues in leadership positions in IT teams or clerk's office, what are your recommendations for their priorities? Which areas should be considered first? And what is this experience in the UK Parliament in that sense?
Sarah, and yes, absolutely. In terms of scope and ambition, we have more than we have funding, absolutely, for sure. And we have to plan and we have to prioritize and think medium term as well, not just what are we doing today, but how to build out to what we want to do tomorrow. I think probably the first thing I would say that I advise is considering the right route. So I mentioned our peer hub and our member hub earlier, and in general terms for our legislative change, we look at doing that in-house, we look at bespoke, we look at being very close to the proceduralists, the clerks, and also the politicians in that development, so that it can be best suited to their needs. And also not take missteps on the security and other matters that are so important. Whereas if we look more widely, because all of our parliaments will be also undertaking corporate functions, and certainly for us, we have a very large building programme that some people may have heard of called Restoration and Renewal, which is about how we are going to refurbished the Palace of Westminster, but at the moment it is about our 17 other buildings and getting them up to speed. So we have a very large facilities department that is managing that process and that needs digital things from us and has ambitions around digital asset management, around building information management. And we have something in Britain that's a government-led initiative called Digital Built Britain, that is about how digital technology can traverse into the building sector and really be utilised incredibly effectively to manage all sorts of things such as flow in buildings, building out in AI how buildings are going to look, what the options are, that type of thing. And that whole agenda is very much playing into our major restoration programme. But all of those things are things which we can work on with partners, are things where there are read across, maybe not of subject matter, but of ambition. So some of the very big rail infrastructure projects in the UK are also having the same ambitions around Digital Built Britain, and we can work together and learn from each other. So I think a key thing around the priority and the investment is understanding what it is best to do within Parliament and by itself, and what is a good idea to do with others, or where we can learn. I think probably the other thing that I would say is that there is a challenge, and I suspect and hope it resonates with others. There is a challenge around the sort of software as a service environment and the vendor subscription environment, where costs go up. And that seems to be the only way that they go, and budgets often stay the same or very close to the same. So that type of management is that's tricky. And that requires, I think, effective conversations with those decision makers to ensure that we understand the total cost of ownership of that type of thing. You know, what's it going to cost us over its lifetime? And also that when we are taking decisions, say, about staffing or other such matters, that we understand and have factored in the licensing costs and things like that, that even 5, but certainly 10 years ago, we did not have to consider in the same way. And I think it's a challenge for all IT professionals to make that case, but also to manage effectively in those budgets and to make sure that you're continually pushing value out from those type of arrangements with vendors, and that if you aren't, that you're able to move on to something else.
Thank you, Tracey, for your consideration and the points you brought to us today. So my next question is for you and Helena. So we all know that legislative houses don't follow the same standards of efficiency as other social organizations, such as the private sector. It's highly undesirable for us to think in a faster lawmaking process. We have to accommodate different points of view and seek the best possible way to create consensus, either for the internal processes or for the lawmaking itself. In a concise way, I want you to propose you a reflection in the sense of understand which ways can we follow to maintain the legislative historical and core traditions, as well as to modernize the legislature. What are your considerations about this subject?
Thank you, Sarah. I agree with you when you point out that a faster lawmaking process is undesirable, at least in most cases. In order to create consensus, we have to listen to as many opinions and different views as possible, from experts, from the academic, the scientific community, from society in general. We need to study the proposals and analyze their social, economic, and financial impacts. All these necessary steps for the passing of a good law take time and must follow the due lawmaking process. The democratic participation in this process is one of the core conditions for the validity and the efficacy of the law. As a consequence, there is no doubt that we have to guarantee this participation, no matter how urgent the new law seems to be. In the context of the pandemic, the City Council of São Paulo has passed some new laws very fast because they were all urgent and extremely relevant. I would mention briefly just 3 examples for you. The creation of a minimum monthly payment as an emergent support in favor of poor families during the pandemic. The maintenance of payments to professionals who are drastically affected by COVID-19, such as school bus drivers who suddenly stopped driving students to school. The release of public funds to health public service and social assistance. These are just 3 examples. And then there was a need for public hearings according to internal rules. And when that happened, they were guaranteed by digital means. And actually, there has been more popular participation on average by digital means during the pandemic than before, when public hearings could still be physically attended by citizens before COVID-19. On the other hand, it is very important to mention a recent change of interpretation concerning the role of local parliaments. This change has been as important as the digitalization process we are talking about. But it has to do with a core legal aspect of the competence of our parliament. Until a few years ago, the courts understood that only the chief of the public administration, the mayor, had the power to initiate lawmaking processes related to public service, such as health and basic education. This scenario changed substantially in 2015, when our Supreme Court judged a leading case in which a local law initiated by a member of the parliament ruled that local authorities should install security cameras in the buildings and surroundings of schools, of public schools. The court decided that the list of matters subject to the exclusive initiative of the mayor should be strictly interpreted. In view of this judgment of the Supreme Court, the local parliaments could expand their field of initiative to a non-determined number of legal projects. Such interpretation has had a great impact in the legislative activity of the parliament, which cannot be reduced to legal projects of low impact anymore. The role of local parliaments goes much beyond that, and society needs and deserves much more than laws of minor impact, such as those I mentioned before: honorific titles, nomination of streets, etc. So these two things: first, the virtual and digital tools adopted by the City Council before COVID-19, and second, this leading case judged by the Supreme Court paved our way to a fast and responsive lawmaking process to meet the new, huge and urgent challenge that the pandemic imposed on all of us.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your consideration. So in this final part of the second part of the panel, I would like to move forward to you, Collen, to the next question. So the modernization of a legislative house goes beyond the mere usage of technological tools. It requires things like cultural, legal, and political change in previous frameworks in the legislature. And concisely, approximately in 4 minutes, in your view, what are the possible changes for the Parliament in the reality of digital communications going for beyond social media? It's possible to even consider a better flow of information between parliamentary staff and the MPs with the society, improve even more the quality of the legislative process?
Okay, well, of course, as with anything else, there is always room for improvement. So even the way we do things now, anyone can say that there is room for improvement. And we are continuously examining our processes and looking at what we can do better. So we work collaboratively with the Secretariat of the Parliament, with the IT department, with the legal department even, to come up with ways where we can both garner feedback from them and the public as to how we can do what we do better. So I think that culturally, citizens may feel that they are not a part of the lawmaking process here in Trinidad and Tobago. So what we do as standard is that we ask for comments on legislation. So we will ask for persons to send in their comments to us, and some persons actually are able to make their comments known or appear before committees, even as private citizens or as organizations, to share their views on legislation. I can give an example. We today, the Tobago Constitution Amendment Bill was laid in the Parliament, and it was debated today. But before today, we had months and months of public consultations We had views coming in from members across the country, across the society. So this is one way that we were able to have persons share their views on a particular piece of legislation and to feel as if they are a part of the lawmaking process in Trinidad and Tobago. Another thing that we do, we are not a production house per se, but the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is the only parliament in the region that has a broadcast television station, a 24-hour broadcast television station. And what we do is that we come up with programs that tell the story of the legislature, about democracy, about the work of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and parliaments across the region as well. So what we have done is we have, brought the Parliament a little bit closer to the society. So we are also part of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. Again, we are the only parliament in the region that is a part of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, and we have won awards for some of our productions. And so what we try to do is we try to show the work of the parliament, the work of committees. We have a 24-hour station, so all we can do is just fill it with content, and that is our way of bringing the parliament a little bit closer to the public and bringing what we do, making it a little more palatable and a little more open. The Parliament channel began broadcasting in 2006, and the rationale for that was that, instead of the citizens waiting to hear what happened in Parliament at a sitting from media, let's open it up. So you can have 24-hour broadcasting. So you have live sittings, all committee meetings, all sittings of the Senate and the Houses are broadcast live, so persons can see and hear for themselves what is happening in the Parliament and feel a part of it. So these are some of the ways that we try to bring the work of the Parliament closer to the public and to have MPs hear what the public is feeling, to have the public share their views on legislation and about Parliament in general. Of course, we have the Rotunda Gallery, as I indicated before. This is another way for us to share what the Parliament is doing and how the Parliament is able to, bring a piece of itself to the public and bring the public into the Parliament, because it is not a space where it's only big name artists who can exhibit their work. We do have famous artists in Trinidad and Tobago who can exhibit there, but we've also had an 11-year-old child. She did her artwork and we accepted it, and it's free of charge to any citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to display their artwork here. Of course, for the pandemic, it has to be completely virtual, a virtual art exhibition, but that's another way for us. And even in the exhibition of the artwork, we are also able to share about the history of Parliament, etc. We have also done a virtual tour of the Parliament, and the UK Parliament has a tour. So we have also done a virtual tour of the Parliament chambers. So again, that's another way for us to share the history of the Parliament, the work of the Parliament, and what the Parliament is doing. So taken against our mandate and our budgetary and other constraints, we are trying always to improve what we do and improve sharing the work of the Parliament with the public, and also getting feedback and collaboration between the members of Parliament and the public.
Thank you, Collen, for your consideration. I'd like to pose a question for all of you. So starting with Patricia, my question is, we are in the midst of a deep process of change in legislature all over the world, moving from the development of legislative continuity during the pandemic to a new reality in post-pandemic for legislatures. So, Patricia, starting with you, how does the Parliament in the post-pandemic look like, and how is it different from its digital transformation strategy in the period prior to COVID-19?
Thanks, Sarah. I think before the pandemic, digital strategies have many limitations. Important changes were discarded because they were considered impossible to be implemented. The pandemic made us realize that many barriers, many obstacles have fallen. And our major risk is having a parliament not resilient and not prepared to changes. Now I see parliaments prepared. thinking how to prepare. And I think all parliaments are moving toward a higher level of digitalization, most of them. But the key point here is how far we will go. And how is our strategy? Is it ready? Yeah. So I think the concern now is how will be our path. That's how I think is our next steps. Thanks. I thank you so much for everyone here. It's a pleasure again. Thanks.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for your participation. So, Tracey, what do you think about it?
So I really agree with Patricia that a key difference now is that the discussion is not whether things are possible, but what parliamentarians wish to happen. So that is a very different discussion around digital, and that is a great step forward. That realization that things can be different and that can happen quite rapidly is a change. If I look at the UK Parliament experience, I think there are facets that have come from that forced digitalisation that will stay and will grow, especially around committees and their ability to operate in a virtual and hybrid manner, to bring in witnesses who previously perhaps they would not have been able to because those people wouldn't have had the time or would have been too far away to travel to London. From an inclusivity point of view, that is a big gain, and I think committees will continue to make the most of that. If I look at the House of Lords, where the average age is 67, and where they have a minority, but a relatively significant minority of disabled peers, at the very moment, their procedure committee is looking at how the innovations that we have put in place could continue to enable disabled participation over and above what will stay in place for everybody. I do think, on the other hand, though, the point about resilience is very well made, because we all have our BCDR plans, and now we have a new section and consideration to that planning, because certainly before, all planning was about physical meeting. That was a presumption. And COVID has come in and has thrown that presumption out and said, well, maybe actually it could be about virtual or hybrid meetings. So that will be a focus for us.
Thank you, Tracey. So, Helena, what do you think about it?
Of course, there is always more to be done, methods to be improved, new technologies being constantly developed. I think our role is to be permanently open to possible innovations that may add quality to our service, without forgetting or putting aside the core values and missions of the Parliament, which include, of course, the guarantee of participation of society. And in Brazil, we have a very social, diverse, we have a social diversity here. So not every citizen has access to a computer or to these digital tools that are already available. So we have to pay attention in this part of our citizens, of our society. We have to be transparent in all process conducted by the City Council, the lawmaking processes, investigative proceedings, public contracts of any type, use and destination of public resources, and so on. I want to say that the digital transformation strategy will change very much in the post-pandemic. I think we have reached a point of no return. in the use of new technologies. It has come to stay. The complexity of a huge city like São Paulo demands the implementation of all possible innovations that may result in social justice, enhancement of our democracy, and access to public service of quality.
Thank you, Anna. So, Colleen, what's your opinion about it?
Yes, so of course, as everyone has said, COVID-19 has definitely changed our world, and it has forced us to go digital a lot quicker than any of us would have expected, and also forced the members of Parliament as well to get on board with that. It has obviously affected the way that we work internally and the way that we interact with our key stakeholders, from the government agencies to the members of other agencies to the members of the public. So we have to get on board with IT and with this digitalization as quickly as possible. And of course, as we look forward to a post-pandemic future, our strategy must include resilience while we pursue our goals, but we also have to be transparent, accountable, and open. Of course, we have tried as a parliament to always do the latter, which is to be as open as possible, to be as transparent and accountable as possible. But still, the ever-changing nature of COVID-19 has taught us that we also have to be agile and to also give our undivided attention to projects and to legislation that matter to the public and that accelerate our goals. So we will continue to advocate for greater investment in our IT infrastructure to ensure that we provide strategies to keep people connected to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you all for being here with me, with us today. So we reached the end of the panel. It was a pleasure to talk with you all and to learn a lot today and to share experience. So thank you all. Thank you all, the audience. So we'll have a last message from the one of the event sponsors. So thank you all. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Tracey.